How's it? Welcome back. So I was having a chat with a colleague of mine and we had some time to kill. So eventually, of course, I bring up the topic of lucid dreaming and he didn't know much about the practice. So I'm just talking his head off about it. And then eventually he shows some signs of interest and he's like, oh, maybe I should give this lucid dreaming thing a try. So then I asked, well, how much hours of sleep do you typically get a night? And he's like, oh, like 4 to 5 hours. And I was like, well, in that case, you're basically screwed because, the longer you sleep, you spend exponentially more time in REM, etc. So I was like, you should be targeting like 7+ hours of sleep at least if you really want to take your lucid dreaming practice seriously. So then he asked me, well, how much hours of sleep do I typically get? And he kind of caught me there because lately I'm like, like 5.5 to 6 hours or so, which got me thinking about the number one killer of my personal lucid dreaming practice, which is by far, without any shadow of a doubt, video games. Just because my main time to play is at night after the family goes to sleep. So on nights I don't play video games, I'll go to sleep between like 9 and 10:30 p.m. But then on the nights that I do, I go to sleep between like 12 a.m. and 2 a.m. So it's a good like 3 to 5 hour difference there, right? But I love my video games, so you got to make some sacrifices. Or like one of my earliest clear memories, I must have been about 5 years old at this point, was when my dad came home with a Sega Genesis. And like me and my older brother, we had no idea he was going to do it. He just shows up one day with it. Me and my brother are tripping out. Like every night after that, my mom, my dad, my brother and I would be playing Alex Kidd together or Altered Beast. And when Sonic came out, that was a huge deal. But, ever since then, man, video games have been a huge part of my life. I've always had, the most current systems that are coming out and things like that. But something interesting that PlayStation started to share back in 2018, it might have been 2017, but I can only find my stats from going back to 2018, is they'll share like how many hours you spent playing, your top played games and all of that. So I thought I would just go through this really quickly to highlight how much this kills my lucid dreaming practice. But anyway, also another thing to note here is that I've always had multiple systems, right? So I had the PS4 and then I got the PS4 Pro when that came out. So I've always had both those systems in the house. Then when the PS5 came out, I had the PS5 and the PS4 Pro. But then when the PS4 Pro started to die, I got another PS5 because, me and both my kids will play. And I don't like having to like try and take the PS5 around to different rooms to hook up the different TVs. So I ended up getting multiple PlayStations. So that's going to play a factor here when we factor in how many hours a year we play, because it gets kind of crazy. So in 2018, we played 933 hours, which averaged out to 2.5 hours a day. In 2019, we did 1,043 hours, which averaged out to 2.8 hours a day. In 2020, we did, this was the craziest. This almost seems like not even accurate or right to me, but in 2020, obviously pandemic time, a lot of time stuck at home, we played 1,770 hours total, which averaged out to 4.8 hours a day, which is just totally nuts. In 2021, this was the least amount of hours. We did 904, which still averaged out to 2.4 hours a day. In 2022, we did 1,196, which averaged out to 3.2 hours a day. And then last year in 2023, we did 1,401 hours, which averaged out to 3.8 hours a day. And with 2024 here now, man, I mean, we definitely ain't hitting those 2020 numbers, but we're probably going to be at least on track for like the 2023 numbers, because this year has been really crazy. I mean, I feel like now, like these next gen or current gen systems like the PS5 and then the Xbox Series X and S, they're really kind of only hitting their stride now, even though like they just announced the PS4 Pro and all of that, which, isn't really worth it. But just knowing me in my head, I know I'm going to get it, but I'll sell one of my other PS5s and kind of put that money towards this Pro. But, this year has just been crazy. Like just in the past like month, we had Black Myth Wukong come out, which is a super dope game. That's the one I'm currently sunk into. Warhammer 40K, which is a lot of fun. I started to play that, but it's similar enough to Black Myth that it's very hard to play both at the same time. So I'm trying to hammer through Black Myth first, and then I'll go on to Warhammer. Astrobot, super fun game. My kids are loving that. I mean, great for me too. That one's awesome. Marvel vs. Capcom Fighting Collection, like one of my favorite fighters ever, like Marvel vs. Capcom 2. That's in there. So that's another one I'll be sinking some time into. Vampire Survivor, which is a game that came out a couple of years ago on like Steam and maybe even Xbox, I think. But it only just recently hit PlayStation, so my son and I have been playing that. Plus, it's good because you can play up to 4 people. So like, both my kids, my wife, we can all hop on the same screen and kill a bunch of vampires. Stellar Blade came out recently. That was an amazing game. Rise of the Ronin, not that amazing of a game, but I did put a whole bunch of hours into that and beat that one. Dragon's Dogma 2 came out earlier this year, where Dragon's Dogma 1 is like one of my favorite games ever. So I was super hyped on 2, but you know, that one was awesome. Had some problems though. Hi-Fi Rush, another fun game. Mostly my older son played that, but that was on Xbox like a year or two ago. Then it just came out on PlayStation, so we picked it up. Tekken 8, you know, my other favorite fighter, like Tekken and Street Fighter are my two favorite fighters, but Tekken 8 came out. That was a lot of fun. Grand Blue Fantasy Relink. That game kind of sucked, but I sunk a bunch of hours because I wanted it to be good. It looks really flashy on screen, but I didn't like the controls, but sunk a bunch of hours into that. Hades 2 came out earlier this year. Well, it came out in like early access, where Hades 1 is seriously one of the best games ever made, without a doubt. So 2 came out. I played a bunch of that, beat it as far as I could beat it, because it's still in early access. And then just like the games coming up later this year, right? Black Ops 6 is coming out. I did the beta the week or two ago when it was out. That was super awesome. I do like it much better than like Modern Warfare 3 so far. Dragon Ball Sparking Zero looks like fun. I'm always getting like, well, not always, but I get most of the Assassin's Creed's game, and Assassin's Creed Shadow is looking pretty dope, so I'll definitely be getting that later this year. Lego Horizon Adventures, another fun looking game, where the Horizon games I love. Don't normally like the Lego games, but that one looks really awesome. I think my kids will love it too. And then talking about the kids, so like my younger son's really into Transformers, and they have Transformers Galactic Trials. So-so looking game, but I'm sure my kid will play a bunch of it. Then any game they play a lot, I end up kind of getting sucked in and playing a bunch too. And then like Dragon Age, the Vile Guard. Obviously, that's going to be a major time killer of epic proportions, but I'll guarantee be hopping into that as well. But anyway, yeah, video games are fun, but they definitely kill my lucid dreaming practice. But you know, you got to find some balance, because I'm not willing to give up either of them. So I got to make it work somehow. Anyway, yeah, that's it. Until the next video, keep your video games legit.